Hey guys, it's Cece, and today I'm going to be doing my October wrap-up. So October was kind of a busy month for me and involved a lot of traveling, and that kind of messed with my reading schedule. So I have a couple of books here that are from my lit class, and then a few books that I read on my own. Not my best this year reading-wise, but definitely not terrible. I'm still pretty pleased with what I got read this month. So let's just jump in and talk about all the books that I read in the month of October. The first book that I read in this last month was Vicious by V.E. Schwab. I finally took a jump and I decided to read a V.E. Schwab book, and it definitely paid off. I will be doing a full review of this book, which will be up in the next week. I already have it filmed, I just have to edit it and decide when to post it, so I won't go too into detail, but Vicious is about two characters named Victor and Eli who met in college and were drawn to each other through similar interests and through a lot of maybe questionable traits. They believe that through a series of different things they can give people extraordinary abilities. And then the story also picks up 10 years later, right after Victor has broken out of jail and he is on the hunt for Eli, who's now his enemy. So this is an incredibly interesting book. Definitely very cool if you like the X-Men. This is a great book for you. If you don't like the X-Men, I don't care. Pick up Vicious anyway. It is a fantastic book, one of my favorites this month, but I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read in the month of October was Openly Straight by Bill Konigsberg. So this book follows our main character, Rafe, who has been openly gay for a number of years in his hometown. And then he moves to a boarding school on the East Coast and decides that he is sick of always being called the gay kid. Even if it's not in a bad way, he's sick of that always defining his personality. So he decides he's not going to tell anyone at this school that he is gay, and he's just going to see what happens and see what person he can become without that label on him. I was sort of interested to read this book. I'd heard a couple questionable things about it. I wasn't really sure if I liked the premise, and I should have probably trusted myself before reading this book, because me and this book did not get along at all. So my first main problem with the story is that it relies so heavily on all of these high school cliches that are in a lot of young adult contemporary books that, while might be true some places, I think are becoming less and less true in high schools. The fact that one of the main questions that this character had through the whole book was, how can I be friends with both dorks and jocks, really bothered me, because that kind of story doesn't really interest me. Just be friends with both of them. I just don't think it's a very good point to draw on. I saw what the book was trying to do with talking about labels and talking about how we discussed that, but I didn't really like how it panned out, and also I think that it led this book in a very bad direction in terms of honesty. Not even just with Rafe lying in general, but he really deceives his closest friend to an extreme that's just unacceptable, and it was sort of dealt with, but not really, and that really bothered me. So while I did like some of what this book was trying to do, I did not like the execution, and I did not enjoy reading it, and so I wound up giving this book like 2.5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read in the month of October was Anna and the French Kiss by Stephanie Perkins. I read this book, or started reading this book, the day I left Paris on my fall break trip, which I think was the perfect time. That is why I decided to read this book this month. So this book follows our main character, Anna, in her senior year of high school when her Nicholas Sparks-esque father decides to send her for her final year of high school to a boarding school in Paris. And for some reason, I don't know, for some YA contemporary reason, she's really angry she has to go to school in Paris. Anyway, when she gets there, she meets a collection of friends who she really likes, and she also meets a boy who is very handsome, and she's very taken with him immediately. Unfortunately, Mr. Etienne St. Clair already has a girlfriend. It is YA contemporary at its gooeyest, and that's really the highest rating I can give it. I don't love YA contemporary, and romance sometimes doesn't really vibe with me because I think it's a little silly. But while this book was silly, I did really enjoy the middle. That was definitely my favorite chunk of this book. I had some trouble getting into it at the beginning, and I thought the last couple chapters were a bit ridiculous, but I really enjoyed the middle, and I enjoyed some of the places they went. I also had some issues with Anna and Etienne as characters. I don't think they were very good people, which is why I think I had a hard time enjoying the very end of the book. But I did kind of enjoy the gooey romance of this book, and so I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read was for my lit class, and that is Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf. We are reading a lot of books that are really just set in London through different time periods and kind of exploring that. So this is a book that we were assigned to read this last month, and while it was not my least favorite of the books that we've read so far this semester, I couldn't really get into it. This is the story of Mrs. Dalloway, who is out on a shopping trip to get some stuff for a party that she's going to have, and it just sort of follows her stream of consciousness as she remembers being young, and then as she's worrying about this party, and it also follows the storyline of a couple of other characters. This book was really revolutionary in its form of storytelling. The fact that it is stream of consciousness was a huge deal when this book was written. Also, it was a book that actually acknowledged PTSD as a thing, which was very important. However, I found this book sort of hard to follow. I enjoyed a lot of it, but then other times I would find myself completely lost, and I had kind of a difficult time getting through it, despite the fact that it appears to be a very easy book. So, unfortunately, I did not love Mrs. Dalloway. I wish that I had liked it a lot more, but I wound up giving this book 3 out of 5 stars. Next up, I read Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn. I decided to read this book after being invited to join the Creepalong Readalong, which I will link some information about below. I believe there is going to be a live show at some point. I am not involved in it, but the people who run the Creepalong Readalong are, and I will link their pages below also, so you can just go and check that out. But we all read Sharp Objects together this month, and I am so glad that I did. This is the final Gillian Flynn novel that I had not read, so now I've read all 3, and I loved this book. For like 15 seconds. I'll be really fast. Sharp Objects follows a girl named Camille who is fresh out of a psych hospital. She's a reporter, so she's sent to her hometown to investigate the murders of these 2 little girls. Okay. The main point about this book was that it was spectacularly creepy. Perfect for October. I'm really glad that I got to read an actual creepy book for the month of October. Totally got under my skin. And I really enjoyed it. I don't want to give too much detail, but Gillian Flynn is an incredible author. She creates really fascinating and entirely disturbing characters. If you haven't picked up any of her books yet, I highly encourage you to do so. This is probably my second favorite of hers, and I just absolutely loved it, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. Next up, I finally finished reading The Profession of Violence by John Pearson. This is a nonfiction book following the lives of the Grey twins, who were gangsters in London in the 1960s. So this book just sort of tells the story of their lives and growing up and how they became gangsters and what became of them, that kind of thing. The one thing I will say about this book is that the writer, John Pearson, is a bit dry with his facts. It's just very straightforward, this is what happened, which I know is kind of what you look for in a nonfiction, but also, like, these guys were terrifying, and what they were doing sometimes didn't come across quite as terrifying as I wanted it to, because John Pearson was just very straightforward about it. But I did really enjoy it, and I did really enjoy learning about the Grey twins, even though it took me a very long time to read this book. And I'm very excited that now I can go and see the Tom Hardy movie as well. But yeah, if you're curious at all, if you've seen the movie, or if you were made curious after hearing about the movie, I highly recommend that you check this book out. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Next up, another book from my lit class. That one is Vile Bodies by Evelyn Waugh, I think is how we determined you pronounce it. Anyway, this book takes place in sort of the early 1930s with the group of young people around London who were just partying non-stop, following the First World War and sort of leading into the Second World War. And it is a ride. If you were looking for a funny book, this is definitely a hilarious book. I laughed out loud multiple times. Every character is just so empty-headed, and they have the most bizarre and hilarious conversations, and I absolutely loved this book. This is probably my favorite one that we've read for my class so far. It's one that I want to, like, actually buy myself to own my own copy of, so it's a good sign. Yes, this is a hilarious book, which I very much enjoyed, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Next, I want to talk about a single-issue comic that I read, but there are reasons, and that is Bitch Planet. This is number 5, and this is a series by Kelly Sue DeConnick and Valentine DeLandro, I believe. I wanted to talk about this comic because the first volume, the trade paperback of the full first arc of Bitch Planet has just come out, and this will be the final single issue comic in that arc, so I wanted to just talk about this series because I haven't mentioned it before, and I thought it'd be cool to mention it now that that full kind of bind-up is out and you can go and get it. So Bitch Planet is a really interesting concept. It is very much reminiscent of Orange is the New Black, but in space. And basically it takes place in a future where instead of women gaining more rights and being more equal in terms of like society in general, instead it takes a step backwards, and you can be sent, and women can be sent to prison at Bitch Planet for something as simple as, they're called non-compliance. If they don't listen, if they do something slightly wrong, a man can get them sent to prison. This is a fantastic comic. It is becoming quite popular. A lot of people get tattoos, the non-compliant tattoos, which are really cool, but this was a very awesome edition. I'm glad that this is the only comic I've allowed myself to purchase while I've been here, and it was definitely worth it. I'm glad that I got to finish off the arc. I believe this arc is called the Extraordinary Machine arc, but it's really fantastic, very diverse, it explores a lot of things, and what's really cool is that they always include a couple of articles in the back about feminist issues, about issues in general, so it's a really cool series. I wish I had seen more people reading it, so loved this. And the final book that I read in the month of October is yet another physical copy of a book. This is too many. I shouldn't have this many physical copies, and that is The Art of Being Normal by Elisa Williamson. I bought this like my first week here in London. This was the first time that I fell and I bought a book when I shouldn't have, but hey, it was signed, so there are reasons. This book follows David, who is about 14 years old, and the secret that David has always had is that he wishes he were a girl. And his family thinks that he is gay, but that is not how David feels. David feels that she is a girl, and it sort of explores that story with David alongside the story of another kid at school, Leo, who is brand new, and he also has some sort of secret, and between the two of them, secrets will come out. This was definitely a YA contemporary set in high school. It definitely had all of those markers, but it was a very interesting read. So I really enjoyed the way that this book explored David's relationship with her family. I thought that that was really interesting, and how their dynamic worked. Both David and Leo had sisters in this book, and so I really enjoyed seeing the sister relationship with just all of them, the sister-brother relationship, the sister-sister relationship. I really enjoyed all of those aspects to this book also. And obviously, I haven't shown you the side of this yet, but if you look, I cried a few times. I've got plenty of blue tabs just because this book was really emotional. This book definitely got me emotion-wise. It had its issues that I have with a lot of YA contemporary books, that the high school setting just isn't very realistic, and sometimes that really bothers me, but I thought that the story in general was really together, and I really enjoyed the plot, so I'm really glad that I read this book, and it was really fantastic, and worth it that I purchased it, even though I shouldn't have. So those are all of the books that I read in the month of October. I hope you enjoyed watching. In comments below, let me know what some of your favorite books that you read this month were, and if you have read any of the books that I've read, let me know what you think of them as well. And of course, thank you for watching, and I will see you in another video very soon. Bye!